Stream on. Stream is on.
Stream on.
Yes, I think of that every time I put the stream on. This is the Techno Buffet podcast, episode number 609, recorded Thursday, December 1st, 2022. In 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. So it's been another 2 weeks, and we are back for another episode of the Techno Buffet podcast. Last week, what were you doing at around this time, Jerry?
I was in a food coma.
Okay, so you were post-turkeying.
Yes.
Okay. What was I doing a week ago? I don't even remember what I was doing exactly at 9 o'clock. I just know I wasn't doing this.
You were not doing this. Or if you were doing this, you were doing this without me, in which case it would not be exactly the same, so...
Yeah, I tried that solo podcasting. It didn't work.
Kind of boring, isn't it?
Yeah, just me talking to myself. And then, you need a script because then it sounds better when you're doing a solo. So you end up reading the script, and before you know it, you're saying, why am I doing this again? See, the thing is, even though we sort of have some stuff we could talk about, to be honest, I don't know what you're going to say. And sometimes you surprise me.
Yay?
Well, I'm saying that's what makes it interesting, because it's not just me talking to myself.
It's not just me talking to myself.
Yeah, that should be our new slogan. Techno Buffet. It's not just the host talking to themselves.
Individual.
Yes, it's the host talking to each other. So, did a little work on my Home Assistant instance. Do you remember the story of the keypad?
Yes, I remember the story of the keypad. How did the keypad work out?
Well, I built my first blueprint to power the keypad. I've never done a blueprint. So I created it, since I now have 2 keypads, I created a blueprint that would, whenever essentially the state on an object that I specify in the blueprint changes, it would change the status on the keypad, and vice versa.
Well, that's cool.
Progress. Needs a little tweaking though, but the keypad and the alarm entity inside Home Assistant are synced, but some of the times and triggers just need to be adjusted slightly. Also, I need to do something about my father.
What's wrong with your father?
He keeps not leaving the house. When he leaves the house. For some reason, his phone keeps insisting that it's here despite the fact that it's left.
Is it just not updating? Because my wife's phone does that.
I played with it for a while, and for some reason it's not updating. But he has to get a new phone because of what happened yesterday.
Is he on iPhone or Android?
He's on Android, and that's actually the issue. So he went to get new hearing aids. And they went to pair the hearing aids to his phone, and it wasn't working, so the audiologist called their support line, and they said, is it a Motorola phone? And he said, yes, and the answer is, oh, that won't work. So apparently the people at Motorola, none of their phones support ASHA. Are you familiar with ASHA?
No.
It is essentially a protocol used for streaming audio for hearing aids. I forget what it's. It's hearing aid audio support using Bluetooth LE.
Okay.
So, excuse me, it's specifically audio streaming for hearing aid is the acronym. So, the Android open source project actually supports this in later versions. I believe it's 11 and above. Even though the phone technically is that, apparently Motorola disables it for reasons unknown. So I had to look through the list of phones that officially support this because I'm not going to buy a phone, find out it doesn't support it, and have to return it a few times. So I have ordered a replacement phone for him. A Samsung S10e, which is a 2019 phone. So he's actually getting a phone that is older than the phone he had so that it will support this feature.
Interesting.
Well, he doesn't want like a $400 phone. He was fine with a $200 Motorola, but he needs to hear. So what can I do?
I don't know.
I don't know either. The thing is, some phones look like they might support ASHA, but it was hard to get any research confirmation on that. So short of me ordering it, finding out it didn't work, and sending it back. Also, I'm on a bit of a time problem because my parents were only up here for Thanksgiving, and they're going back to Florida next week. So if I don't find a phone for them, then that'll be problematic because I don't think they can handle it on their own. Not that they're not capable, but technology is my thing, not theirs.
Sure.
So that is my problem. So I've succeeded in, one, having to downgrade the, let's say, the newness, if nothing else, of my father's phone. My father being subject to alarms because of things, and the automatic activation for the house not activating security when he left because he never officially left. But other than that, I've made a decision to consider replacing my home router with a home-built one. I haven't built a router in years.
And you don't mean like plastic, like, doing your own plastic generation or 3D printing, right?
I'm talking about a network router.
Right.
No, I'm talking about using an actual computer. And I was thinking of trying OpenSense.
Is that different than pfSense?
Slightly. Think of it like pfSense's cousin.
Okay, but open.
No, it was OPN, not the word open.
Oh.
Somebody could try to talk me into pfSense. I just thought after reading about both of them that OpenSense sounded like the one that was more suited to me. So I have a dual WAN computer sitting here, like an inexpensive one without a fan, and I'm going to try it at some point. I say at some point because I figure I need like a couple hours to really build the thing, test it, and then deploy it without my internet being down for too long, which would annoy me. So I will get to that in due time. I did upgrade one of the 2 access points in my apartment that are on opposite sides of the building to Wi-Fi 6.
Ooh.
Yeah, the other one is staying as Wi-Fi 5. I just figured I'd get a little more reliability on one side of the building.
I thought we went from just Wi-Fi to Wi-Fi 6. I didn't realize there was 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 in there.
No, what they decided was that the A, B, G, AC was getting confusing. So how did you know what your generation was if you went from, what, didn't we start out with B and then we went to G and then we went to N?
Yeah, but there were a bunch of them in there.
No, but you know what I mean. It wasn't, the pathway from one generation to the other was not, let's say, clearly understandable by a layperson.
Sure.
So they decided 5 is the equivalent of the old AC. So they decided that what they would do is they would count the generations and they would call the next one 6. I think I have the list here somewhere. Let's see. So Wi-Fi 5 essentially would be upgrading the here's the naming convention. I just need it here. Wi-Fi 1 would be 802.11b, 2 would be 802.11a, 3 would be G, 4 would be N, 5 is 802.11ac, and 6 is 802.11ax.
Interesting.
So it still has a specification, but the number is to make it easier for them to put it on the box and somebody to understand what's going on. If that makes sense.
It does. And I kind of agree with it.
Yeah, you can still use the other letters, internally for your own personal use. You can impress all your friends by knowing what all the specifications are behind the numbers.
Wow. Nope. That's crazy. I had forgotten we'd gone through B and G and N and AC.
Really? I remember all of those vividly.
I do too, but I just kind of, at this point, Wi-Fi is Wi-Fi, and I just haven't really given it any thought.
Yeah, and for me, the reason I decided to go to 6, and I could have waited for 6E to become more prevalent, was, one, I was having some trouble with reception in certain areas, and it's supposed to be a little more reliable. And, every so often you just have to, keep pushing the forefront of technology. Also, I figured out what to do with my old Wi-Fi 5 access point. I think I can take the two Unify Wi-Fi access points that I have that are 5s and create a mesh network. I forget what the name of the Unify Mesh Network feature is, but there's a feature for it. I think it's wireless uplink or something like that.
I don't know.
Well, I have the wireless access point that I installed in my parents' place in Florida before the people at Atlantic Broadband, now BreezeLine, decided that they don't allow third-party equipment. But that's a whole other conversation. Anyway, so 2 of them should be able to figure out something to do with it. So that's some of the things I've been up to. Also, Black Friday was not necessarily kind to me. Or maybe it was. If I think that I bought things that I probably shouldn't have bought, is that good or bad?
I don't know.
Well,
I'm gonna go with good.
yeah. Well, I just couldn't resist. They had 50% off of 2 of the Star Trek box sets. So I hadn't been planning on buying the Star Trek box set, but now I have, the whole set.
Congratulations.
Well, who could pass up 50% off the entire run of Deep Space Nine?
Me?
Yeah, I know you're more of a... What series are you more of a fan of that's roughly the length of a Star Trek show?
Of the Star Trek's, Voyager's my favorite. I know
That was also 50% off. It's under
No, I'm not.
It's under the Deep Space Nine box.
there's.
Oh no, excuse me, it's over the Deep Space Nine box. I just looked.
I understand it's not a popular opinion that Voyager was a good show, but I enjoyed it.
It's not that simple. All of the shows had bad episodes. Even though you could say that a series overall had positive things, there are some episodes of shows that were just cringeworthy, and some of that is they haven't stood up to time.
You know the one that I never really got into?
Which one?
Enterprise.
I don't know. It had its moments.
Sure, the first couple seasons were okay.
You're talking about by the end where they decided that the solution was to all of the problems was to put their Vulcan character in ever more skimpy outfits.
I didn't have a problem with that.
I thought that I'm not saying that there was a problem with it in terms of how television generally does that. I just think that didn't really make for good character development.
Although honestly, they didn't really do that at the end. Most shows tend to put their characters in skimpy outfits at the beginning and then gradually unskimpify them. Andromeda was a good example of that, where Andromeda, the Avatar, Rami,
I remember the show, but didn't watch it very much.
First, really accentuated her female characteristics quite a lot in the first couple seasons, and got gradually much more conservative over the years. Firefly did that too at the beginning with.
I definitely need to get around to watching that show.
Dude, come on! Firefly's it's one season. It's not a whole lot of. It's not a big time commitment, and so very worth it.
I know. I just haven't gotten around to it. It's on my list. I wish my list was more like linear, but so beyond that, I did send you a message over the last few weeks, and I don't think that you got back to me.
What?
I sent a message asking if you were aware that Leverage sequel show came back.
Yes, and I've been watching it.
Yes, but I thought that was something that you would be interested in discussing, so I said, did you know about that? And I didn't hear from you, so I assumed you either didn't know about it or you knew about it and didn't want to admit it.
I'm checking our chat channels, and I don't see that message anywhere.
Okay, I definitely sent it to you. But sure? I hope you are enjoying it, because I know it is a show that you enjoy.
I think they're trying too hard, but I'm hoping they'll get into a rhythm eventually.
Well, they brought back Aldous Hodge. I think they can only get him for one episode at a time.
No, he's been in a few, but just not a lot.
No, what I'm saying is I think they can only get him for one episode per interval, because he seems to be doing a lot of other stuff.
Finally. He's been not real busy for many, many years.
Yeah, but if I remember correctly, he's had a bunch of regarded roles over the last 2 or 3 years at least.
Yeah.
So anyway, moving along. Once again, it's been a slow period. It doesn't matter how many stories I read, and I read a lot of them. There have not been that much. For example, I would think after 2 weeks I would have 24 stories. But let's talk about a few that I do have. The Chromecast with Google TV 4K has been updated to the October 2022 patch, which is the first one since it got Android 12, which it got back in October. And I'm mentioning this because I decided to do what I said I would do the last time we talked, which is I hooked my Google Chromecast 4K up to my Roku and have not been using the Roku part of my Roku.
Really?
Well, I have a little problem with the sync on the remote control that I have to work on, but right now as I am talking, I looked over, because I have it hooked up, the TV, which is a Roku TV, hooked up to the Chromecast. While I am enjoying the show, I also get to enjoy a lovely photo album shifting across the screen of photos that I've taken over the years. For example, the one on the screen now is March 13th, 2022 in Florida. By coincidence. I know you like Florida.
I do like Florida.
Except where you have to get that furnace on.
No, actually, my next comment was you wouldn't have that problem if you lived in Florida.
Well, I'll be down, and if I'm going to be there on the 14th. I still have a lot of vacation to burn since I didn't take very much this year, so I'm going to take off a week and come down. And since my employer gives me off those days around the 24th of December for some reason, I might as well take advantage and make it a long week. So I get to enjoy whatever it is your state has to offer.
Cool.
Which will mostly be the fact that I can go around without a coat. Anyway, moving along. Google is apparently working on a Gmail and calendar apps for Wear OS.
Neat.
See, I haven't quite figured out what you would do with that. Because you can do notifications. The question is, what would a calendar app do on a watch, and what would a Gmail app do on a watch? I don't want to write an email on there. I'm not sure I want to read an email on my watch. So I'm curious what it is they think they're going to do.
I don't know.
Okay, well, that brings us to the people at Eufy. So this is the Android Central version of the story, but you could probably find half a dozen of these stories. Because everybody was sort of following this, and as somebody who uses Eufy products, I have something of a mixed view of this. So a security researcher named Paul Moore claims that there are several security flaws in Eufy cameras. Number one, images and facial recognition data are being sent to the cloud without user consent, and live camera feeds can purportedly be accessed without any authentication. Now, he says that some of the issues have since been patched. So what he has said is that that he notified an organization of a potential security problem and they fixed it. Remember my complaint about the people at Wise? That they were notified about a security problem over and over again and didn't fix it? Apparently he told these people and they promptly did something about it. Oh, the horror. Anyway, moving along, Moore, who lives in the UK, apparently is taking action against Eufy because he's claiming it's a GDPR breach. By the way, I've spent a depressingly long time talking about GDPR over the years, and I don't think it is. But that's neither here nor there. I'm not a lawyer. So
I worry because I just bought a Eufy camera.
Yeah, but if you look at what, if you read the explanation from Eufy of what they said, first of all, they have independent certification of their protection standards. So essentially, the fact that they have a independent certification does suggest someone was looking at it and they've done everything that they should have to comply. Now, the thumbnail issue is that they are uploaded if you turn on include notifications, include thumbnails in your notification.
Yeah.
So they have said that even though Mr. Moore was able to do something about this, namely he was able to retrieve them, it was essentially being retrieved from the same web cache that he already authenticated to. So they're essentially changing it to make it clearer that push notifications will be temporarily stored in the cloud if you add in an image.
Which, gee whiz, golly, makes kind of sense, don't you think?
Yeah. Well, I think they're right. We should have been clearer about that, but it's not like it's. If you look at GDPR's provisions, it says that you are allowed to store data, including personal data, for a disclosed purpose. Here, that's the disclosed purpose. So then we get to facial recognition image. So we're back to, he gave a image of his face to the Eufy system, and it does edge face detection in order to identify people that it already knows.
Right.
And he's saying that that other items were able to essentially tag and link the facial ID. So he's saying that that means that they are storing it in the cloud. And there's sort of an
but storing something in the cloud is not inherently unsafe.
Yeah. Well, they're saying that one of Eufy's things is that they claim that they do everything locally, which in this case they do. So one of the things that his statement is, it proves that Eufy is storing facial recognition data and allowing cameras to readily identify stored faces even though they aren't owned by the people in those images. So he's saying that a completely different camera, different username, and different home base was able to tag and link the facial ID to his picture.
Interesting. Odd.
So again, like anything, the first thing I don't really see is necessarily bad, and it's sort of this. And I'm going to check now because there have been several different updates to this. So I just want to see if anybody answered that part of the question since I first looked at the here. So let's see if another source explained. So here we are. Moore began asking Eufy questions about its practices on November 21st on apparently on Twitter, because that's the perfect place. He also claimed that they needed to enhance their AES key. So there's a bunch of things here, but I'm just trying to see if... Here we are. For mobile push notifications, they're claiming that it is stored in a AWS server. And that is server-side encrypted behind username and passwords automatically delete and comply with messaging standards. So apparently they're still claiming it's part of the same problem, that it's cached for a period of time and will be deleted afterwards. But anyway, I still trust them more than some other people. But if anybody has any more information on that, I've read this and I just went to see was there any more, but I'm curious if anybody knows a little more about this, because ultimately speaking, I saw some of the criticism, and I think it's somewhat unfounded. There should be criticism, but I don't think it's that they engaged in poor practices. I think they engaged in very good practices. It's just they found something that needs to be improved. Yep. Anyway, moving along, apparently influencers were paid by Google to promote a phone they never used. So, so the lesson here is do not trust advertising.
Well,
you shouldn't anyway. You shouldn't trust, if somebody is telling you this is a wonderful product, you should not necessarily trust that. You should do your own research. I'm not saying anything like that.
Varying ways of advertising.
Yep.
And the association with somebody popular is not a good reason to choose something.
I will agree with that version of my statement. That you shouldn't buy something because somebody endorses it. Now, reviews are sort of that. However, reviews have a whole different thing. One would assume that if somebody was reviewing something, that they actually used it. And if I found out that somebody took a statement from Google and posted as if it was their own personal review, again, I'd have the same response. People expect that an advertisement is not necessarily, it may spin the truth, but it is not outright lying.
Yeah, well.
Anyway, I did not buy a Pixel 4, and even if I did, it would not be based on influencers. Speaking of Pixels, apparently Pixels can now show timers from your speakers in the at-a-glance thing. Apparently it is starting with the Pixel 7, so it might be a while before I see it, because I'm still on my 6. There was this whole thing where they were saying that you could trade in a 6 and get enough money that you could give in $20 and then get a 7. So I was curious, so I decided to see if that was true, and it may have been true for somebody, but maybe I went to look too late because I would have only gotten 50% of the cost of a Pixel 7 for trading in my 6. So disappointing. Anyway, if you've been missing them, apparently food and package delivery alerts are back in the Pixels widget.
Ooh. Ooh.
How about this one? We'll have it is now easier to change the Amazon Echo's accent without changing the region. So apparently, if you want your Amazon Echo to sound like an English person, it used to be that you'd have to change your region. They are saying now that if you want the English voice for your Echo and you are not in the UK, then you can now do that. So apparently, if you're in the US, UK, Canada, or Australia, you can select from American, Australian, British, Canadian, or Indian voice options.
That's interesting.
I'm just thinking of doing that to somebody to surprise them. And like one day they come home and they talk to their Amazon Echo and it responds in a completely different accent. Note to self, try that. Anyway, I have my moments of pranking people. If you use Pocket Casts, apparently now they let you customize the Android 13 media player. And it's added per app language support.
Neat. Cool.
Yeah.
Weird, but okay.
I happen to like Pocket Casts. And it's available for your new operating system and your old operating system. Is it not?
Yep.
Okay. If you are a user of Google and Android TV, which, as I just mentioned, I was experimenting with making it my driver here instead of Roku, they're going to be doing app bundles. So app bundles are essentially the way of saving space. So they've replaced the APK, which is the package kit. They optimize for each device by not having duplicate files to cover every size of screen if you're not using it. And that allows for more storage. So yay.
Yay.
Moving along, the Android developers blog came up with their introducing camera viewfinder.
What's that?
Yep. So if you are a developer and you want to adopt the Android camera framework, you may have some problems. Because again, every device is different. So that's the whole idea of this viewfinder is it allows you to quickly implement previews from a camera with minimal effort. I don't always talk about dev things, but I figured it's been a slow 2 weeks. I should talk about them.
Yep.
Yep. And of course, finally, the people at Google Maps have a new live view feature. So now you can essentially roll around and search and see overlays for things like where the nearest EV charger is.
I think do you have to be in a big city for that to work?
It's rolling out for in Los Angeles, London, New York, Paris, San Francisco, and Tokyo, but I'm sure they will expand it. Traditionally speaking, these things always start in big places and then move to smaller ones. So if you wait long enough, it will get to your neighborhood. So this brings us to the Jerry part of the program, where I asked Jerry what he did of an interesting technological nature while he was away.
Nothing really. My truck did a lot of the driving, which was cool. It's not super impressive. It's basically lane centering with adaptive cruise control.
I'm still waiting for when I can take a nap and the car will just keep going without me.
I did drive about 2,000 miles, and that was...
Where did you end up again?
I went from here to Texas, and then from Texas to Memphis, and then from Memphis to Nashville, and then from Nashville back down to Jacksonville. I did go to when we were in Nashville,
Yeah.
we went to the Grand Ole Opry.
Was it grand?
It was. Opryland, and they had this ice area, and they were doing this ice sculpture show, and they gave you this big, huge parka when you went in because they kept it like 9 below 0.
If it makes you feel better, you may have suggested this, but that's not how cold New York is usually.
It was so cold. It was very unpleasant.
Yeah, I have rarely experienced -9 degree weather.
Oh my God, it was, but the sculptures were amazing.
Well, I'm glad you had fun. I'm just doing the usual, trying to get some stuff done here. But, there's never enough time in the day. I keep wanting to sort of get my stuff all organized so I can start moving on to my next tech project. But things are so messy. So I never seem to make a dent. But hopefully I'll get a little done in the next week or so. I'm saying this so maybe you will ask me next week, did you accomplish anything? And I maybe can tell you yes, or I can embarrass myself.
All right.
By failing.
Cool. I will ask.
Well, I'm also saying it that way because I want to confirm you'll be available next week.
Yes. I will.
Okay, so we will record a show at the usual time next week. Everybody can look forward to it. And we will all be thrilled.
Yep. Yay.
So any final thoughts before we adjourn?
I'm tired.
Me too. Just last week, I was sitting around. It was would have been last Friday. I was sitting around having dinner at like 7 o'clock, and it felt like 9 or 10. It's the sun going down early.
It is.
It just feels like, and I don't remember noticing it as acutely in previous years.
I agree. My wife says that that's just because I don't leave the house. But, man, it's like 6 o'clock and it's dark. And, geez Louise.
Well, here it's much earlier than 6. Here we're getting close to 4.
Holy carp. How much further east than me are you?
I don't think I'm that much further east. Definitely further north, but I don't know. Anyway, until next time, when we will once again talk about whatever it is we talk about.
Until next time, folks.
Goodbye, Jerry.
Goodbye.
Record.